Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, fellow slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood Show is bad news. It's like the news, but worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child-trafficking Satanists is Vinny's jokes. And my very special guest is the wonderful, mysterious, and enigmatic Tim Lynch, who, in my opinion, is probably one of the best radio voices out of any talk radio show host New Zealand has ever had. And we're very much a pleasure to have him on here today to talk about a wonderful world of positive possibilities. Tim, welcome to the broadcast.
Kia ora, Vinny, and we're speaking from Tomorrowland, the Monday the 27th of November. So in many ways we're 16 to 17 hours ahead of America. And so fortunately we can see tomorrow with a little bit more clarity, and things are looking up from a standpoint, 8 billion souls sharing breath at this moment. And in many ways we are a global family having a major squabble in such a way that we're pulling the rug out from underneath our whole civilization, when in fact every child born into this realm is an energy bundle of exponential potential and love. And somehow or rather, we have found ourselves in a situation where our parenting has let us down and our children have run amok. And this is one of the challenges we've got at the moment with the woke society happening. But in the meantime, there is so much possibility, Vinny. We're surrounded in possibility. This is the most important thing, because I'm an early childhood development teacher, and I deal with children from 3 years of age to 97 years of age. And the most important thing for us to realize is that in all 6 directions, we're surrounded by stars and galaxies. So we're in the middle of somewhere, and we don't know where that somewhere is. They talk about the Big Bang, but the James Webb telescope out in space now is questioning everything. And so all we can say is we're surrounded by infinity in every directions, and we have to actually realize who we are and where we are. And so we need to basically start with our heart, Vinny.
Well, this reminds me of a time when I got asked, for a couple of American talk show hosts, "So, Vinny, give it to us straight. Is the earth flat or is it round?" And I said, well, I think it's a holographic fractal that's being projected by collective consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. And they were like, whoa. Right? And the whole idea of this is that if you're living in a holographic fractal that's being projected by collective consciousness that's experiencing itself subjectively, what that means is anything that exists, like energy, can never be really truly destroyed. It just changes what it is. Nothing that exists can ever really truly be forgotten. And everything's just a smaller or larger version of something else. And all things are conscious, even matter, and it all has its own little conscious flow that it contributes to everything in a collective way. And all of that consciousness starts to shape and mold reality as we see it. And as fifth-dimensional consciousness beings, our job is to take those ideas that we have that are outside of time and space, spend our time willing them into the three-dimensional physical space. Only there do our ideas really have any value. Only there can they be seen, smelled, tasted, or touched by other human beings, which triggers their own ideas. Right? That's what we're all here to do at the end of the day. For as the Greeks said, your job is to plant a tree whose shade you know you shall never get to sit beneath.
Well, it's interesting. The word soul is the ancient word for psyche. So in actual fact, that's what the Greeks brought through. Psyche means soul. And so when you have a psychiatrist examining people, people don't realize that 96% of psychiatrists are basically atheists. So how can they be talking about the soul in a human being if they're an atheist? And so what they end up doing is dispensing drugs and drug us down because they've got no idea. They see us as just a machine, some sort of cellular product. But in actual fact, we are full of possibility. And all we have to do is start loving where we are, love the situation, love the moment, and build from there, Vinny.
Indeed. I've got this concept where this world itself is kind of like a battleground or a testing station, if you will. If your soul wants to come in and get down with existence and what have you, you're going to have a few things happen to you that'll test whether or not you're capable of dealing with it. It's kind of like success. Nobody ever experiences success without failure. Isn't that right? Everybody learns and grows and changes, and that's how we're dealing with it, essentially.
It's the evolution of the soul. This is what we need to be able to acknowledge, is that, yes, we have plenty of lessons, and this planet is a school, but for some unknown reason, we're burning down the classroom because we've become disconnected with the grandeur and the magnificence of what this planet gives us. Because when it's all said and done, we don't know where souls come from, Vinny. We don't know how souls were created. They're not built in a Tesla factory. They have to actually come from somewhere. So we don't even know that. But the beauty of this is that we are lent a body. The human race is lent a body. It's free. We had free air, free water, and until recently, a free food chain. But now we've got certain humans who want to commodify everything. And as we see, they're locking us down. They're wanting to lock away the food. They're wanting to lock away the water. And soon we'll most probably be given 12 to 14 breaths an hour to breathe. We'll be taxed on that. But in actual fact, you know too, we're getting onto the front foot now as a humanity. There's cracks in the narrative globally, and doctors are popping up all over the place with more information, talking about that dreaded injection that we had. And we have Argentina throwing out the old in the last few days, same with the Netherlands, and even here in New Zealand. We have a far more conservative government that actually wants to have a commission, not necessarily a royal commission, because they're all captured, those people in the royal commission, but have an independent commission to check out why we went through this horrifying 3.5 years in this global lockdown. And I think we're actually making steps going forward, and we're going to win this one. We're going to really, I can assure you, we're going to win, solely because there's too much information leaking through in mainstream media. Very few people now are really, or particularly conscious people, are wanting to have anything to do with media. Hence, I'm talking with you.
Yeah, it reminds me of the story of the Dutch boy sticking his finger in the leaky dike. That's a dam, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not making a reference to that in that kind of leaky dike. But the the story goes that basically one little squirt of water starts coming in, so he puts his finger in it, and then when he does that, another thing starts leaking up, so he puts his other finger in that, and then another, until eventually the dam bursts and all the water comes running through. And that is what we might be seeing potentially worldwide with humanity and higher consciousness and a move towards freedom and truth-oriented information, as opposed to unconsciousness, immorality, ignorance, apathy, laziness, and cowardice, which has been dominating mankind's spirit for quite some time, ever since the 1913 Federal Reserve Act, coincidentally enough. But I digress. We are still in the potential lands here where we're able to make a difference, and it has been quite encouraging, despite the lack of support from them, to see, after my arrest, having been doing this for 13, 14 years at that time, having done 6,000 videos and 20,000 hours of published content and interviews with virtually everybody in the truth movement, both here and abroad, to see that when I went down and got arrested and got deplatformed and everything, all these new people started shooting up all of a sudden and starting to dominate the airwaves here locally. And I could be pissed off about that. I could be jealous about that. But in actual fact, it felt like I was no longer alone in this particular space where you do the radio, you do the videos, you do the media, you do the interviews, you have the website and products associated, what have you. For such a long time, I was the only person doing that, and now there's many people doing that. And I just think, like, it took long enough, but I'm glad to see it nonetheless. And regardless of the fact that it seems almost none of these people respect me or try to help me through the hard times that I'm going through, they are still getting the truth out, and for that basis alone, I'm very supportive of them.
Yes, well, this is how it works, Vinny. Sometimes one has to lie down on the barbed wire and allow the others to run across your back and into the fray. So I congratulate you. I've watched many of your videos over years, and I've seen how you have got right out there and got in their face and put them on the back foot, because they couldn't actually think of a truth to tell, so they had to tell lies. But I remember going to, Occupy Wall Street. And this is a very interesting thing there, because you interviewed me halfway up this. That day, it all came out of the blue very fast, because things were happening in America. And so New Zealanders jumped on the bandwagon. I was at work that day. I went to the manager and I said, look, I need to get the day off. I need to go to Auckland straight away. And she said, take it. She says, I was on an anti-GE rally some years ago, and I had a bullhorn. So you get out there and walk up that street. So we get onto the street, the main street, bottom of Queen Street, and we're walking up, and thousands of people are turning up. And as we walk up the street, from all the side streets, more and more people kept joining, and we were like one gigantic amoeba or a gigantic thought-thorn, and we were just continually up to Aotea Square, where we were all going to actually assemble. And you were on the left-hand side, and you interviewed me on the way up. And I want to thank you for calling me to say a few words, because I got somebody from America within an hour tell me they'd seen me on your video. And so what it was is that this amoeba, we carried on up the main street, and we couldn't go around one way, we'd go another. If we couldn't go underneath, we'd sort of go over the top. And we finally all assembled to have wonderful speeches and a rally, and then everybody put their tents up. But Occupy Wall Street became infiltrated here in New Zealand, as you know, but we all lost them, because infiltration is happening on a global basis. We saw that in America, and we see how the neocons infiltrated America, and then we have the communists infiltrate the left. And we have this everywhere. Infiltration has taken place in this country. It's local councils in particular, all up and down the country, and we have inroads into our government even today, even with our particular three different political groups in New Zealand at the moment who just formed a government a couple of days ago. We have to be 100% alert to what these people may do.
Yes, and infiltrators and charlatans and things of that nature. People make the mistake that because now you're just doing truth for a living, that's who you are now. It's not the case. Who you were before you started doing this is still who you are unless you work on it and recognize it, because the truth is not outside you, it's inside you also. Okay, just as much as you need to know that 9/11 is an inside job, that fluoride is a IQ lowering spermicide, and vaccines are bioweapons, and there's so many things that you need to know, but you also have to look inwards as to what your failings are. How could I have been deceived for so long as to only just wake up at the age of, say, 35, as most people do? And the reason for that, of course, is because you went successively from one type of cult indoctrination into another, and another, and another, and another, before you realize that the whole kitty kind of, you're going to get a qualification over here, or you're going to get a raise over here, or you're going to get a promotion over here, or something like that, that all of that doesn't satisfy you, doesn't make you feel alive, doesn't make you feel like you've got a purpose in life, because you're always looking for something that somebody else is dangling in front of you, instead of looking inside yourself for something that you really want to do, something that you know to be right, something that is purposeful, as it were. And this sort of distraction from what I call real life, real achievement, has really got people down, I think. And even people in the truth movement, they are narcissistic, insulting, abusive, sadistic, judgy, and that kind of thing. And they love message boards because they can just spew out their bile and leave you with the vomit to clean up, right? They don't feel like sacrificing anything like people like me do. So as a result, they become resentful of people like me because I'm better than them. I do more than them, more than they ever could, even if they dedicated their entire rest of their life to doing the right thing. They'd never achieve as much as people like me or you, Tim. Namely, because instead of creating things, they just want to attack and criticize those people who are doing the things that they should be doing themselves.
Well, a lot of them haven't got much love in their hearts, Vinny. And sitting still, particularly in nature, we can actually feel, smell, and see the magnificence that surrounds us. And we need to have some love in our hearts for, as I said, the moment or the situation. And the other thing is that freedom is the greatest discipline we can have. Because you've got a lot of freedoms there doesn't mean to say you can go now and start abusing the situation and taking more freedoms. It's like in America. I mean, when the Constitution was written, it was freedom to do many, many things. It was wonderful. But there wasn't enough freedom from exploitation. It was not written in clearly. And so what's happened is that freedom has been taken to the extreme now, where we're being exploited. And we're being exploited by people who have no connection from a human's perspective. There's a human family here. At heart, we're a human family. And we're wearing bodies. One's a female and one's a male, strangely enough. And And we
No
have
offense to the hermaphrodites listening to the show, but continue.
that's one. I saw one sliver under the bed just a moment ago. I got to have to open the door and let it out. But the whole thing is there. But we're brothers and sisters. If we can just work on brothers and sisters at the moment, we can definitely get on top of this. But what's our challenges at the moment is actually, as I said, to be still. And I'm not envious of anybody. I'm not envious of any one of $1 million, billion, or dollars or anything. I'm very fortunate to be happy within my own skin. And we have to accept where we're at this moment. And acceptance is a very important thing. Just that we in the Western world, we're so darn lucky. New Zealand is exceptionally lucky solely because, strangely enough, we've had a lot of, because we were the last country to either colonize or invade this piece of land on the southwest Pacific, the early people who came here worked their butts off to make it easy for us. I mean, our health system, boy, I've been to hospital about 3 times, and it hasn't cost me a penny, a brass razoo. And it's because they've put in place systems that will make sure that we are actually taken care of. Now, there is abuse in that. I see that. Because a lot of people smoke and drink and eat as much crap as they can, and then they go to hospital to have a heart operation and get stents and God knows what else. So there is that abuse to certain levels. But essentially, we have to realise that we're so fortunate. And Australia's the same. I've been in Australia, and I went in and got my teeth done for free in Australia. I mean, there are some very, very good things in our society, but we also have to make sure that there's, as you say, no fluoride, no genetically engineered food by any means. Glyphosate, 1080. There's all these things that you and I and a growing number of people, we have to keep pushing back against the corporations. Now, can I just jump in? I noticed lots of people on YouTube and Rumble and BitChute, they're talking not about corporations, they're talking about companies. They're using the word company more and more when in actual fact we've got to drive it home. It's corporations, because corporations came into being really, and they were corporations due to the government wanting a big enough organisation to do capital works like roads and bridges and ports and airports. And then they managed to weasel their way in and started to turn these into companies and then make money out of them. And now, of course, there's this story about when corporations rule the world. Well, that's what they're endeavouring to do out of Davos in Switzerland. But boy, they're getting some major pushback at the moment, because there's some of the corporations are realising that the major clown of Davos is saying things that is letting the cat out of the bag too much. And people have been aware the fact that we don't want to get to 2030 and own nothing and be happy. That's gone. We have to be able to realise that we cannot be hacked. We're not an animal to be hacked like some of the other clowns of the World Economic Forum. But one of the things that's very important we have to know is that World Economic Forum, which is doing the work for the pyramid of power and those at the top and the shadows, the World Economic Forum does not talk of love, never talks of love. They do not talk of soul, and they are godless. And this is where we have to rally our forces, because essentially, if we are a spiritual being having an earth experience and are waking up, we are now sort of coming from unknowingness to realize the enormity and the magnificence of creation, of existence. And it's time for us to be a little bit grateful and thankful. and know that I can go to bed tonight knowing that my tummy is full and that my bed is comfortable and warm. And yet, most probably close on 2 billion souls on this planet are struggling, going to bed very, very empty in their tummy. And there are most probably about 4 or 5, maybe even 6 million souls going to bed tonight totally unfulfilled. The rest are partially fulfilled. But I think it's this unfulfillment that's putting up the psychic chaff into the hologram, into the biosphere, that's making it so much more difficult for us to have a win-win situation. It's like I believe in paying it forward all the time and random acts of kindness. Really, Vinny, when we put our intention out every day, and I do that twice a day, once in the morning and once at night, but I put my intention out as to meet good people and to help them. Serendipity and synchronicity happen all the time. I may run into 3 different groups of people or 3 people in a day, and we meet in the most peculiar and profound of circumstances. And if I can communicate, and usually we connect very fast. Within 30 seconds that we've gone deep, we realize we're a spiritual being and we are here to basically bring through the new paradigm. And at the moment, the whole human race is going through the birth canal into this new realm, into this new paradigm. But we're having these contractions. And in a births are messy and they're bloody and they're painful. But we're going through this birth canal, and more people are awakening as we join in and push through. And we know at heart that we love each other because this is the only way out. I mean, just quickly, I ended up 5 years ago, I happened to be in the Aegean Sea, and I was going from Samos, the island of where Pythagoras was born. And in many ways, I'm a Pythagorean. And I was on the way on a boat, on a real fast catamaran, to Rhodes, where the seventh wonder of the world, the Colossus of Rhodes, was, but where there was a profound battle between the Christian knights and the Ottoman Islamic Turks way back about 600 years ago. Anyway, I got on the boat to go to this island, and I'm standing there, and they come over in a loudspeaker and say, well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Welcome to this trip from Samos to Rhodes, but we're not going to go there directly. We're going to actually go via Patmos, the island of Patmos, and the island of Kos. And you know about Patmos, eh?
No.
Okay. Patmos is where John wrote Revelation in the Bible. And I knew a wee bit about this. And when I heard that we were going to go there on this boat, my antennae went through the roof. And I realized that I was going to be where John wrote Revelation. And in this part of Revelation in the Bible, it says, way in the distant future, there will become a time, be you rich, poor, or a slave, if you want to be able to buy, sell, or own anything, you are going to have a number on your arm or across your forehead. And this is where those numerals come up, the upside down 3 9s. And I ended up there. I ended up on that island. And when it came in, I said, okay, God, this is it. We cannot have what John foresees, because not only that, there's some plains in northern Israel that maintains there's going to be a gigantic maelstrom, a horrendous event happening in the plains of Israel coming up. And so I asked God, I said, please find a way through this. Okay. I ended up then having to go to the island of Kos. And the island of Kos is where Hippocrates did his life. And Hippocrates has a statement that's called the Hippocratic Oath. First, do no harm. And so now we come down to here, and there's a number of things. First, do no harm. Well, all the doctors who have been facilitating this extension into our arm haven't actually followed through on that oath. They haven't actually done the what you call it, the research that it is a what you call a not a hybrid, but it's an experiment. It was an experiment that's been given to 5 billion odd people on this planet. And so this is one of the big things that we have broken that oath. And so instead of it being Hippocratic, we've become hypocrites. That's what's happened. And anyway, so that was one of the things. Now the other thing is the vaccine passport is coming in here at this level, and the digital finance in our bank account is coming in here. And this is what the World Economic Forum and the Pyramid of Power is wishing to jam into the human race. And they're moving in every country at the moment, but particularly the Five Eyes countries: America, Britain, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. This is where one of the major battlefronts are. Europe is coming in close behind too, but you see, Africa is well behind the game plan, and just quickly in Nigeria they used ivermectin as instead of the jab, and you will find the numbers. There's been hardly anyone in the Nigerian population go ill, have an adverse reaction or die because they used ivermectin, and Uttar Pradesh in India as well. So what we've got here at the moment is a culmination of many, many facets coming together within this hologram, this planet that we live on. As David Icke in one of his interviews said to me, I asked him, is there a consciousness embedded in Mother Earth? Is there a Gaian consciousness, or the Maoris were called Papatuanuku? And he said, well, from his standpoint, our planet was a huge turning, rotating information system. And this is it. We're surrounded by information. And I'll diverge slightly. I was up at the Whole Life Expo in Los Angeles back in 1988, and Timothy Leary, who came on stage. And when he came on stage, he rushed out onto the stage, and I looked at him, and sadly, the first thing that came to my mind was an inverted aura. He had an inverted aura because he had taken far too much LSD when he needed to have taken it as a sacrament. But I think he sort of had it like morning tea and afternoon tea type thing. And,
morning LSD and afternoon LSD, yes.
Yeah, thank you. But what he said, and he walked around the stage, he says, we are surrounded by information. I'm taking on information. I see the audience here. I see the, or smell the fragrance in the air. I'm hearing everything was information, and that's what we are. And we are, the hologram is an information system, and we have to be able to take out the good information and turn it around. And this is what I want to say, Vinny, before I forget, is when I meet a person and I can greet them, if I can, at the end of our conversation, when we leave, if they are one vibration happier, then I've succeeded. But if they're one vibration unhappier when we part, I have not succeeded. And so the game plan from my simple, and I'm a very simple man, is that we need to lift the vibrations up by actually finding a way to communicate, opening the bridge of communication, and making sure that when we leave them on a happy vibration. Now, if they're a heavy dude, it's a different story. We leave them with a truth and let them reflect on that truth. And we say bye-bye and let them go and have to deal with their stuff, because we all have to illuminate our shadow. And if our inner candle It's really important. I talk to children all the time about their inner candle, Vinny. And the interesting thing is from this, when I say it, I say, hey, little fella, I can see your inner candle. Instantly their chest rises and they beam. They beam because at soul level, they know that they've got inner light. And so it's really important for us to make sure that we feed their inner candle. And the best way to do it is breath. And of course, through all the yogic teachings, is to breathe into your system, because oxygen feeds the flame. We all know that. And so this is really important. So thank you for allowing me to have a little flurry there, bro.
You're welcome. And I got a few things in response to that. I remember I was interviewing David Icke, and he told me, Vinny, you can't convince anybody of anything, but you can tell them things they cannot unhear. I think it was his worldwide wake-up tour. One of my listeners, Barry, he brought round it was like 10 DVDs or something, or a 10-hour presentation or whatever, and we started the David Icke drinking game. You have to take a drink every time David Icke says decode information. Within the first hour, you begin to have liver problems, and it was quite a significant one. And you talk about this Hippocrates' oath. Hippocrates, he had a saying that, let food be thy medicine and let medicine be thy food. Now, when Rockefeller Medicine took over the American Medical Association, what they did is they took nutrition out of the list of things that they had to teach people. Normally you take a year in nutrition, they put it down to 2 weeks. And of course, so if your job there is to provide people with food that will help their nutritional balance, but you've never been taught about nutrition, yet you're taking a Hippocratic oath, that does make you awfully hypocritical, doesn't it? And when it comes to the Bible, my favourite fact about the Bible is who really wrote it, who got all the documents, who got all these crazy, people on the sides of the street with signs saying Jesus is here, he's going to save us all by his blood and whatnot. Where'd they get all this information? How'd they decode all of that? And the answer is the Emperor Augustus held a council at Nicaea. This is where you do something really nasty. You do it at a place called Nicaea, so nobody sees it coming. And they got all of these preachers from around the empire, because there was a lot of talk about JC back then. And they're like, okay, here's all this thing. The guy was rich, let's make him poor. The guy was a warrior, let's make him a peacemaker. All of the kind of things that wouldn't whip people up into a frenzy and what have you were left in, and all the things that would get people really anti-authority, anti the Romans, and anti the satanic New World Order that was coming and what have you. Let's just leave all of those influences out there. We want something for you guys to gravitate towards, something that's going to be much easier for you to accept, just like all the holidays that you used to celebrate under other religions. We've got those too. Make it so much easier to get people to accept a new religion and a way of doing it. And people are like, oh no, I don't use the Roman Bible, I use the King James Bible. Okay, a guy named King James. Do you know who he is? No, I don't know who he is. Where's his authenticity? Where's his credibility? Why is that such an important thing? I thought this was the word of God, not the word of King James, right? What's going on here? And then you've got all these other religions. You've got the religion of the sun, which is Christianity, the religion of the stars, which is Judaism, and the religion of the moon, which is Islam. And all of these Abrahamic faiths, I was talking with John Ansell about this. If you draw an infinity loop like a figure eight, you'll find that there's truth in each of these religions, and that they overlap in the middle where the truth is the strongest, but they don't tell you the whole truth all around and how they all work together. That way everybody's got a piece of the puzzle, but not the whole idea. And this, I think, leads us into Agenda 21. how exactly all of these things can get implemented worldwide. And that's how they use the Delphi technique. And you'll notice this in a lot of freedom movements actually nowadays, which is very, very scary. They control the narrative of the meeting. They give you options of what there are to talk about. Anybody who talks about anything else, shut up, sit down. And the wonderful Rosa Koire, who's the author of Agenda 21, Behind the Green Mask, she came up with a technique that is called the anti-Delphi technique. Now, what people in our movement usually do is they'll go to some kind of meeting that they want to disrupt, and they'll all sit together, and they'll all be disruptive together, and it'll be very obvious to everybody that you're together. So what happens then? You all get shut up, and you all get ignored, because it's easy to sideline you. The anti-Delphi technique, you do not sit together. You are as far apart as you possibly can, positioned all around the room. And then when one person comes up and asks a question and is told to shut up and sit down, another person on the other end of the room sits up and says, "You haven't answered that gentleman's question. I really wanted to hear what they had to say." Or "I really want an answer to that question," or something of that nature. Then when they're told to shut up and sit down, somebody else stands up. And before you know it, it looks like the entire crowd is against the agenda. That's how you can destroy their abilities. Now, I really wish people would copy that technique out to the process. And this is where it comes down to the grief process, really, because the vast majority of people have suffered some kind of trauma. Nobody wakes up to the truth without some kind of trauma, being subjugated or being screwed over, or seeing the darkness of it just in and of itself through your own research is very traumatizing in and of itself. First you deny it, then you get angry with it, then you try to bargain your way out of it, then when you realize you can't do that, you get really depressed. And the last stage of that grief process is acceptance. And it's important to note that the vast majority of people never reach it. Okay? You'll find so many other people in the so-called truth movement who have not reached acceptance, who do not know that there is a dark god computer communism model being built in China right now to control and monitor all human actions worldwide, where the UN is going to be centered. And they don't know that all of these different roundtable groups that basically control the construction of your infrastructure, your local communities, and your national infrastructure are all part and parcel of the same investing groups like Vodafone or Google or whatever kind of big tech company you can think of. They're members of groups called the Infrastructure New Zealand, the New Zealand Initiative, the Auckland Business Roundtable Group, and things of that nature. And what they do is they operate under the sustainable model of ostensibly environmentalism, which means that a rock has more rights than you, a human being. You're not allowed to touch the rock. You're certainly not allowed to crush it to get phosphate fertilizer out of it, which produces fluoride anyway. But there we have this thing here, and you mentioned the word corporations, which comes from corpus, the dead. Okay, and what people don't recognize is that you are trading with dead entities. Okay, we worship death in this society, and even myself, I've fallen a victim to it. Violent video games, violent movies, and things of that nature. It's all filling up and polluting our consciousness to make us more in line with the acceptance of death and the dead and the undead people who walk around with their heads buried in their phones, not looking at anything particularly interesting, not looking at anything particularly enlightening, just distracting themselves from the fact that they hate themselves and they hate their lives, you know? And okay. That medical system you referred to, this is the last points on this, the leading cause of death in New Zealand, and the top 8 of them, out of those top 8, 3 of them are actually caused by the New Zealand medical system, which means statistically, if you branch it out, the New Zealand medical system is the leading cause of death in New Zealand because of the drugs that they give out, because of the way they treat dis-ease, because they think that viruses exist. right? And there's no evidence in the scientific literature to say that any of these things actually exist. They just take it on faith. And then you get to have your sacrament for your faith-based illness system. And people die. And they do. Because they're going through an unconscious system, and because of the lovely medical system that we have here in New Zealand, supported by the Accident Compensation, say it again with me now, Corporation, ACC, it's actually illegal to sue corporations who kill you and disable you with their products if they are medical pharmaceutical companies. So thank you for letting me get all that out there, Tim.
Excellent. I'll tell you what. Excuse me. I got it from authority that John D. Rockefeller and David Rockefeller, their medication of choice was homeopathy. I've got that written by some professors from Germany. So that's one thing. Now, the other thing too, Vinny, and it's important, we want essentially a transformation of the human race. And we want a Christed human race, for want of a better word. But what's happening is that a lot of people, and you'll see this even in the freedom movement, they'll realize that we've been all conned, but when they do change, they only modify their change. They modify within their own safe parameters. They won't actually do a total surrender. And whereas you and I, we've just surrendered, and now we just let the moment take place moment by moment. And so this is a very important thing that we have to recognize. Now, I want to get back to the Bible, because you've heard of the Schofield Bible. And the Schofield Bible
I actually haven't heard of that, but I'm interested to learn. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jeff Rentz did a whole lot of stuff there on Rentz.com many years ago. And the Schofield Bible was an infiltration of the Bible. And it's got a whole lot of little notations that basically says that Israel is the good guy. And that the Jewish people are okay. And they are. They are, but when you get up into the higher echelons of the darker side of the Zionists, then you understand why so many Christians in North America are so pro-Israel at the moment. And this is why America and Israel are the only ones really on the global stage that are wanting to go in and destroy every inhabitant on the coast of Israel and Gaza. Because if you have a look at, you'll find that all the other countries in the world really realize that America has been controlled by certain Zionist interests. And so that's one thing. But the other thing is that the Bible has been watered down year after year after year after year after year, to the degree that, you remember, I can get a picture of the Bible, King James Bible, that says, way back, it says, and from the east, astrologers came from the east. And you can go up and find the names of those three astrologers, do a Google check, and they'll give you the name. One of them is called Casper. And anyway, the story tells, then they said, oh no, we'll rewrite the Bible, and from the east came the Magi. And then they dispensed with that, and then from the east came the three wise men. And the latest rendition of the Bible is, from the east came the three Coca-Cola salesmen. But that's what's happening. The whole story is that the Bible has been what you call sabotaged. And I think it's very important for us to know. And if you have a look at the Bible, most probably goes back to Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon was a very interesting person, because he also, I think, wrote a lot of Shakespeare stuff, or may have actually been William Shakespeare. Now, we're running out of time, Vinny.
We are.
And the great pity of it is, I wanted to talk a little bit about Bob Lazar, because when I was crew of Air New Zealand, I used to fly internationally. I used to fly from one hemisphere to the other all the time. And one of the things that I used to do is land in Los Angeles, the city of angels, and go to a lot of the libraries and well, particularly bookstores. And I heard about Bob Lazar coming from Area 51 or S4 and what he was doing. And he found, he let it out that in his process, he went past a hangar and there were 9 rescued, recovered discs in that hangar, and one was from an archaeological dig. Mm-hmm. And this is really important there, because then we go to Ezekiel. And what Ezekiel saw when he was somewhere up there, up beyond the Tigris and the Euphrates, somewhere between Turkey, Iran, and Iraq, about 600 BC. And this big UFO landed there, and it had 4 sides. And the 4 sides of it, it was rounded, but it had 4 sides. On one side, it had a symbol of a lion, and on the other side, directly opposite, was the symbol of a man. And then on the other corners, it had one side was a Taurus or a bull, and the other one was an eagle. And if you understand astrology, these are the 3 fixed signs that form a cross in astrology. And so this particular UFO wasn't an intergalactic UFO. It was actually close by, because even the constellations supposedly are moving all the time in our galaxy. And so it was a very localized UFO that came and landed for Ezekiel to see. But it's very important, because there was this woman called Joan Quigley, and she was Nancy Reagan's and Ronald Reagan's astrologer when Ronald was the president of the United States of America. And there was a whole story out there that Nancy was having an astrologer advised Ronald Reagan. Well, guess what? The wall came down. We shook hands with Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev. And the agreement was that Russia would let down the wall, free up all the satellite countries in Eastern Europe, as long as NATO did not come 1 inch closer to Russia. And guess what happened? As soon as Reagan was gone, particularly it was the Bush, but mainly Clinton, that allowed NATO to expand, Lithuania, Estonia, etc., and then in Poland and Romania. And there was a total breach of the spirit of the agreement between Russia and America. And America basically is NATO, and NATO wants to get in and expand right up to the Russian border so that they can have a missile 25 meters basically from the Russian borders if they want to. And one of the big things there, because I've been to Russia numerous times. The last time I was there was 2015 when I went and stayed with people. Have you heard of the books Anastasia and the Ringing Cedar books?
I'm afraid not.
Oh, no, there's over something like about 15 million copies. And she was a woman who lived with bears and wolves up in Siberia. And she's got many, many people and kinsdomains, groups of people living across Russia, living like you and I would live. Anyway, the story is that I was with these people, and they said that they want Putin to secure the borders so that they can bring through a new Russian civilization, because Russia is a Christian country. And this is very important for people to realize. When they got rid of the communists, and the communists were in actual fact a Zionist takeover, because the first thing they did was they destroyed all the churches in Russia. And so what we have now is, you have a look at the Russian flag today, and it's got a picture of a knight on a horse, a white knight, and he's got a lance, and he's lancing a reptile on the ground. You've seen that one, Vinny?
Ah.
Yes. You see, what's happened is that the elite are not allowing us to know the truth. And this is the problem. And Putin I was told, was there to actually keep Russia integral as one country. Now, he kicked out all the oligarchs, because the oligarchs were all actually paid off by Wall Street to go in there. They wanted to take and pillage, because Russia's got earth minerals. It's got vast resources. I mean, I was with a group of Russians down on the Black Sea in the Caucasus, and I asked one of them where she came from. She said, oh, I was only just up at the local town. And the other one, I said, where do you live? And he said, I live out east. And I said, how far out east? He says, 8,000 kilometres away. That was still Russia, you see. And the corporations want to be able to split up Russia and take all its resources. And Putin has said, no, Russia is for the Russian people, not for you corporations to produce planned obsolescent goods that end up in landfills. We want a Russia. And the Russian people, they were wearing traditional dress. That they wanted to just go back to their traditions as God-loving human beings, you see.
They want to go back to the old-fashioned way, where you only get out what you put in. Thank you very much, Tim. Just a final note here before we end the broadcast today. Go ahead.
Keep in your heart. Keep in your heart, people. We're going to win this one. It's Russia versus the New World Order at the moment.
One can only hope.
Well, NATO forced Russia into the arms of China. That's what happened. And it was the neocons that did it. Okay, love it up, brother. Love it up.
Cheers, brother. Thank you so much for your time. And where can people find you? You still on Green Planet FM?
Well, they can't find me much now, because I did a show on ivermectin on ourplanet.org. They can find that, ourplanet.org. I did a show on ivermectin. The radio station came over the top of it in the next week and said, Tim wishes to apologise profusely, no, without reservation, for sharing lies or sharing untruths and misinformation on ivermectin, the drug that got 3 billion people have taken up until now, and has Nigeria used, and it eliminates COVID, and it costs 20 cents a tablet.
Indeed. And thank you to the medical misinformation censors of YouTube and Facebook. So those of you who are watching live on here, I'm going to delete them immediately after this broadcast. However, we will be uploading it to Rumble and BitChute and Odyssey, who do not currently censor so much. And this broadcast is, of course, going to be relayed and is currently broadcasting on, if I've done all the tech things correctly, the wonderful Ground Zero Radio. So for those of you joining us today, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much, Tim. And we will see you again sometime, ladies and gentlemen, at the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. That's Vinny with a Y, because it's the most important question. And Eastwood, like, go ahead, make my news. And on there, ladies and gentlemen, there are some PayPal buttons and the Kiwi Bank and the Patreon. If you are willing to donate to support the show, I very much am very grateful for all of the support that I do get, ladies and gentlemen, because it is a very, very bad business model to try and make money from telling the truth.
Okay, YouTube took me down 8 times. So yeah, there we go.
Number 8. Thank you very much, Tim.
Kia ora, brother. Aroha nui.
We'll see you again sometime, folks, at the Vinny Eastwood Show.com.
Attention all Ground Zero radio fans. GroundZeroMerch.com is your one-stop shop for all things Ground Zero.
Oh, wow.
Show off your style with our exclusive collection of t-shirts and hoodies. They're not just comfortable, they're conversation starters. Need to keep hydrated during those long listen sessions? Get your hands on our durable water bottles. And now introducing our latest editions, a hand-picked selection of intriguing books that will keep your mind buzzing. GroundZeroMerch.com. Support Ground Zero and everything we do.
My Patriot Supply is America's leading emergency preparedness company and believe it's every person's patriotic duty to achieve true freedom from our world's increasingly unreliable and fragile systems. The best way to do this is to invest in your personal liberty, because you can't rely on governments or corporations for the basics of life. Act now and secure at least a 4-week emergency food kit full of tasty meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. They have dozens of emergency food storage kits to choose from, along with a variety of survival products. Despite these difficult times, My Patriot Supply has kept their commitment to you with well-stocked emergency supplies. They will deliver them quickly and discreetly with friendly 24/7 customer service. Stay alert and prepared, friends. Let everyone else take tomorrow for granted. Go to preparewithgroundzero.com. That's preparewithgroundzero.com.
Do you want to know why your inalienable rights are so vital in these uncertain times? Check out the Unsuppressed podcast on aftermath.media. Join Wes, Bill, Patrick, and Avery as they discuss the fundamentals of urban and wilderness survival, disaster preparedness, gear discussions, and so much more. Check it out with your premium Aftermath subscription, and make sure you stay unsuppressed.
If you're looking for a thought-provoking multimedia platform about current events, trending news, pop culture, conspiracies, and the paranormal, you need to sign up for Ground Zero's exclusive digital playground, aftermath.media. Their website includes years of archived shows and podcasts from Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis and The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable. You'll have access to over 200 documentaries and movies from some of the greatest minds in the last 50 years in their video section. In addition, you can watch live video stream of Ground Zero. Also, there's monthly chats with Clyde along with intriguing and educational webinars. Each subscription includes tech support, RSS feeds, a chat room, and social media channel. Be sure to check out their yearly specials for basic and premium memberships. So sign up today at aftermath.media. That's aftermath.media.
Hello, fellow Americans. I'm Alan Johnson, representing Freedom Gold USA. Today, I want to talk to you about something that's been on the minds of many conservative Americans: inflation and the looming threat of central bank digital currencies. Inflation is eroding your purchasing power, and if you don't take action, it's your savings, your retirement, and your children's future that will pay the price. But here's the kicker. The government is pushing forward with central bank digital currencies, giving them unprecedented control over your money. They can track every cent that you spend and potentially limit your financial freedom. At Freedom Gold USA, we believe in preserving your financial independence. So don't wait any longer. Protect your wealth with physical gold. Visit our website at freedomgoldusa.com or call us today at 1-888-411-1845. And together, we'll safeguard the American dream.
Attention all Ground Zero radio fans. GroundZeroMerch.com is your one-stop shop for all things Ground Zero.
Oh, wow.
Show off your style with our... Attention all Ground Zero radio fans. GroundZero